The eerie disappearances at Donald Vista Point, where are they and what happened? Nita Mary Mayo. Out of all the cases, Nita's case is the most well-known. Mayo was last seen her residence in Hawthorne, Nevada on August 8, 2005. She had told a friend she was going on a shopping trip over the Sierra Nevada mountains to the western side of the mountain range. She said she would go over Sonora Pass on State Route 108, and would return by evening and report to work the next day. Mayo is believed to have left her home at 11 a.m. She did not arrive at work as planned and has never been heard from again. 2 days after her disappearance, her silver 1997 Mercury Sable or Ford Taurus station wagon was found at Donald's Vista, a lookout point on State Route 108 just outside Sonora. The keys were locked inside the car, which could also be opened with a keypad. Mayo's cellular phone, wallet and purse were also inside the vehicle, only her camera was missing. There was no sign of her at the scene. In September 2005, authorities announced they were seeking Jill Jean Rice in connection with Mayo's disappearance. She is not being called a suspect in Mayo's case, but investigators believe she may have valuable information. Police stated Rice's vehicle had mechanical problems in the Sonora area on the day Mayo disappeared, and she was going around asking people for help with it. On August 12, she left Sonora without the car. Her current whereabouts are unknown. Charlie Project. According to an article published by Strange Outdoors, Mayo's son, Pete, stated that he knows that she's not right around Donald's Vista. I crawled on my hands and knees around that place for weeks and found not one scrap of evidence. I know that place better than most locals. I scoured it for months. It's hard to live with the fact that you let her down. It's also worth nothing that Nita was scared of heights, and according to friends and family, wouldn't go near the edge of the lookout. Her story was featured on America's Most Wanted. Patricia Sue Tolhurst. Tolhurst was last seen in Twain Harte, California on April 18, 2014. On April 20th, she sent mailed letter to some friends saying she was going to go to Kennedy Meadows to put her feet in the water. She has never been heard from again. On April 22nd, her white Toyota 4Runner was found abandoned at Donald Vista Point on Highway 108. Tolhurst's purse and other belongings were inside it. Few details are available in her case. Tolhurst owned a restaurant, Patty's Shack in East Sonora, California, at the time of her disappearance. Her loved ones stated she was having financial problems and may have been distraught over them at the time of her disappearance. Her case remains unsolved. Charlie Project. Breck McDowell Phelps. Sadly, out of all the cases, this one has the least amount of information. Phelps was last seen in Tuolumne County, California on October 2, 2016. He went on a fishing trip on the Stanislaus River that day and apparently never returned to shore. A friend later found his 2007 Nissan Versa parked along Highway 108, about a quarter of a mile from Donald Vista Point, near a trail Phelps had used before when he went fishing. An extensive search of the water turned up no sign of him and he has never been heard from again. His case remains unsolved. Final notes. To this day, none of the cases have been solved. I know to some, the answers may be obvious, whether it be suicide or an accident. I really want to encourage discussion though. Sadly, the Donald fire ripped through the area in 2018, destroying 135 buildings and burning 36,450 acres. This, unfortunately, means that any potential bodies or evidence may have been destroyed in the fire. Either way, I thought it was worth sharing this story to hopefully encourage discussion and attention towards these cases. The unbelievably strange death of Charles Chuck Morgan. Businessman Charles Morgan vanished after leaving his Tucson, Arizona home on March 22, 1977, and a few days later arrived back at his house. He could not speak, but he wrote down to his wife that he had been kidnapped, tortured, and a hallucinogenic drug had been painted on his throat. He also claimed that he had worked as an agent for the federal government and he fought against organized crime. 2 months later, Charles vanished again, and 2 days later was found shot to death in the desert despite the fact he was found wearing a bulletproof vest. Surprisingly, authorities ruled that Morgan committed suicide, but his family and a reporter named Don Devereaux believe he was murdered. Rumors are he might have been killed because he was into illegal activity or of doing secret work for the government. His death seems just as unexplained as the events leading to it. Suspects, none known. Extra notes, this case originally aired on the February 7, 1990 episode. Results, unsolved. Charles's death was later connected to the murder of Doug Johnston and the death of Danny Casolaro, but all 3 cases remain unsolved. Sadly, Charles' wife, Ruth Morgan, died in 2006. Not mentioned in the wiki is that while he was missing the second time, his wife got a call from an unknown woman. The wife recalled. This woman said, "Ruthie?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Chuck is all right." Ecclesiastes 12, 1-8. And then she hung up. That section of the Bible reads in part, "Men are afraid of a high place and of terrors on the road. Remember him before the silver cord is broken and the golden bowl is crushed. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was and the spirit will return to God who gave it." 2 days later, his body was found. The bullet came from his own .357 Magnum, which was lying beside him. The investigators also found a piece of paper with directions to the murder site written in Chuck's handwriting, and a pair of sunglasses which definitely did not belong to him. The police made one additional discovery. Chuck had clipped a $2 bill inside his underwear. Written on the bill were 7 Spanish names, beginning with the letters A through G. Above them was the notation, Ecclesiastes 12, with the verses 1-8 marked by arrows drawn on the bill's serial number. This was the same Bible verse the mysterious female caller had given to Chuck's wife. On the back of the bill, the signers of the Declaration of Independence were numbered 1-7, and there was a roughly drawn map. The map led to an area between Tucson and Mexico, to the towns of Robles Junction and Salacity, both known for smuggling. There's a picture showing a bill with those markings at the official Unsolved Mysteries site. There are other oddities with this, including a woman who called herself Green Eyes and claimed to be the mysterious caller and to have met Chuck at a motel. She said he'd flashed a briefcase full of cash. The Casolaro connection I'm blanking on. So, 1. What the hell? And 2. What the hell? Edit. Here's an article by Don Devereaux about a money laundering scheme. Devereaux, I guess, was part of an Unsolved Mystery segment involving a shooting that might have been a mistaken identity case in which someone was after Devereaux. He was investigating Charles Morgan and Danny Casolaro, plus Arizona mob activity. It also says Morgan's tooth was found in his car, wrapped in a handkerchief. It's not likely to be Salacity, as I don't know of any town anywhere in Oz with that name, and certainly not that corner of Oz which I know pretty well. It is more likely to be Sahuarita or Sonoita. The map written on the back of the bill looks like 3 points, basically Robles Junction. I was curious about the names listed on the back of the $2 bill, so I meandered over to the Unsolved link. I'm shaking right now. I recognized at least 2 of those names as law enforcement officers in southern Arizona back in the 70s to 80s. A comment below the wiki confirms my thoughts and says all the names are of law officers at the time of this mysterious death. Disappearance of Liza Tishkina. It happened more than 10 years ago, on 7th of March, 2009. Liza Tishkina, a 10-year-old elementary school student, was walking home with her classmates after a concert in school dedicated to International Women's Day, a holiday in Russia. After saying goodbye to her friends and heading home, she was seen by 2 of her other classmates near a stadium. She vanished right after that. Liza's mom, Dina, suspected there's something wrong when her daughter failed to come home at the usual time. She tried to find her daughter by herself first. She walked Liza's usual route to and from school, but still, no sign of her. Dina called the police. Now, let's see why this disappearance is so interesting and why is it different from all the other disappearances. Liza, her mom, and her grandma lived in a town called Sarov, with population of about 90,000 people at the time. What's interesting about this town, is that it is closed. You couldn't enter unless you had a pass, and all the arriving and leaving cars were checked. Or at least that's how it was supposed to be. If you watch Pust Gavriyat, Let Them Talk, a Russian talk show that had at least one episode dedicated to Liza, you would notice that a lot of Sarov natives mentioned there were no additional car check when leaving the town. So, what happened? First theory was the most popular one when the investigation just started. A lot of people were convinced Liza had drowned. Sarov was built on Satis River, and the stadium, last known location, was very close to it. There is not much to say about this theory since the river has been artificially dried 3 times and no body had been discovered. Also, it was too cold for her to drown. The river was covered in a thick layer of ice. Not a lot of people nowadays believe that Liza had drowned. Second theory is still talked about to this day, and it is that Liza was abducted and murdered within the city's borders. It could have been an opportunistic murder, planned revenge on her relatives, although it is not mentioned anywhere that the family had enemies, or maybe it was the work of a serial killer. The question is, was that killer a city's native or just someone who had a work pass? Police searched wooded areas, bodies of water, abandoned buildings, houses and apartments of known ex-criminals, drunks and addicts. People were questioned and tested on polygraph. Alas, no sign of Liza. It is important to note that the girl's body couldn't be buried right away because the soil was so cold that it was nearly impossible to dig into it, and if it would be done, there would be marks. Third theory is the most popular one. She was abducted and taken somewhere else. It would explain absolutely no traces of Liza and why she was abducted on that day in particular. It was the first time in a long time that Liza was alone. Her grandma didn't pick her up from school because she felt unwell. Liza didn't go to her usual music classes either because of her grandma, and it was the day before a holiday, so there were not a lot of people outside. The abductor most likely stalked Liza for a while and took her when no one was looking. It is likely that she was then taken to another location outside of her hometown, since the security wasn't checking the cars, so the abductor could have been a city's native or just someone who visited Saraf for work often. Fourth theory is that Liza is still alive but enslaved. She could have been human trafficked and taken somewhere, even outside of Russia. Liza's mom, Dina, is confident that her daughter is alive. She says that if her daughter was dead, she would have been found in the first year of her disappearance, which is questionable. Liza spotted in Moscow. In 2017, a series of photos appeared on VK, Russian version of Facebook, with a girl among homeless people that were fed by volunteers. That girl bore a striking resemblance to Liza Tishkina. She looked almost exactly as Liza's mom in her 20s. Instantly, Liza's mom was notified. After Dina flew out from Saraf to Moscow, she began searching for that girl. The whole process was captured by Pustgova yacht team. Upon finding the girl, a DNA test was performed to see if she was Dina's missing daughter. Unfortunately, the girl wasn't Liza. Her name was Olya and she came to Moscow looking for a job, but ended up being homeless. Where is Liza? We still don't know. We can only hope that she's found one day and that her mother gets closure after all those years searching. It is really scary that there is most likely someone on this earth who knows what exactly happened on that day in March.